For some assignments, you may be performing duties that require you to work from a stepladder, scaffold, or motorized man lift. You should never be working from an unsecured ladder, as this type of work is restricted within our company. For a traditional rolling ladder that has handrails and is gravity-fed to stay in place, allowing you to control your work assignment. In most work assignment, the only ladders you should encounter are the rolling ladders. And if using a man lift, do not work at heights above 20 feet. If you are asked to perform work at heights above these limits, please notify your branch representative or on-site manager as soon as possible to ensure the situation can be evaluated. Never climb on a rack, material, etc. that could cause you to fall. Only approved rolling ladders can be used to pick product at elevated heights. Fall protection may be required if you operate a stand-up or similar type of forklift. This PPE needs to be inspected prior to each use and worn accordingly to the training you have received. At no time is it allowed to disregard the use of fall protection based on the job and risk identified for the job being performed. Visually inspect every ladder before use. Issues such as broken steps, missing cleats, and bent or missing spreader bars should be reported to your supervisor or the host employer immediately. Never use a broken or defective ladder that doesn't provide the stability and safety to perform your job task. Also, be sure that the ladder that you are using is properly sized for the task. Never extend yourself outside the confines of a rolling ladder or man lift. This will shift your center of gravity and can make the ladder unsteady or cause you to lose your balance. Always be certain that the ladder you are using is properly rated for your work. When considering the weight rating of a ladder, be sure to include your weight, the weight of any items you may be carrying, and the weight of your clothing, product, and PPE. When climbing or descending a ladder, always use 3 points of contact. This means 2 hands and 1 foot, or 1 hand and 2 feet in contact with the ladder at all times. The most important thing to remember with hand tools is to use the correct tool for the job. For example, do not use a screwdriver for chiseling work. Most accidents occur when tools are used carelessly or inappropriately. Visually inspect all tools before you begin working with them. If you notice that a tool, cord, or hose is damaged, malfunctioning, has been modified, or is in otherwise unsafe condition, stop using it immediately and report the issue to your supervisor or the host employer. Keep your hands and fingers away from the moving part of any hand or fixed power equipment, such as drills, sanders, or cutting devices. Do not use equipment of this nature until you have first received training by the host employer and understand the safety features. Do not allow power cords to dip into puddles of water or liquid, even if you believe the line is protected by a ground fault circuit interrupter. If the GFCI equipment were to fail, there would be no protection for you. Most electrical equipment is grounded with either a 3-prong plug or 2-prong plug and insulation. If the 3rd prong of an electrical or extension cord is missing, stop. Do not use the equipment, as this is a grounding device and protects you from electrical shock in the event of a short or malfunction. For the same reason, do not use an adapter to plug a 3-prong cord into a 2-prong receptacle. If you use box cutters, do so carefully. Never place your hand or arm in the cutting path. Position the box cutter so you are cutting away from your arm, hand, or finger, so if the cutter slips, you won't cut yourself. The blade must be retracted when not in use to prevent accidental contact with the blade. If at any time your box cutter becomes damaged, doesn't close properly, or is dull, request a new one from the supervisor. By federal law, you have the right to know about hazards associated with the use and handling of hazardous chemicals in your workplace. Additional site-specific training may be required and completed at the client location depending upon your assignment. Every client that uses hazardous chemicals has and will provide access to a written program including a list of on-site chemicals and safety data sheets, or SDSs, for each chemical in their inventory. The only exception to this requirement is consumer products that are labeled as such. While some of the information on the safety data sheet is technical in nature, sections on recommended PPE and what to do in case of an exposure or spill appear in clear, easy to understand terms. The best time to learn about the hazards of a chemical is before you use it, so be sure to read the SDS for any chemicals you are asked to use or ask your supervisor. All containers of potentially hazardous chemicals must be clearly labeled, and those labels must be maintained in a legible condition. Good hygiene practices such as washing your hands before you eat, drink, smoke, or after you use toilet facilities should be followed at work. Furthermore, you will be restricted from eating or drinking in areas where hazardous materials may be present. If working at a job site where hazardous chemicals are used, report any symptoms such as difficulty breathing, skin irritation, stinging eyes, slurred speech, dizziness, or confusion to your client or manager immediately. In terms of personal protective equipment, some job tasks may require a dust filter or other type of respiratory protection. You will be trained if this is a requirement of the facility you ultimately work at. If you notice a chemical spill at work, notify your site supervisor immediately. Do not attempt to clean or contain the spill by yourself, but immediately report the issue to a client or manager to manage the situation. Anytime you are handling hazardous chemicals for any reason, you must use the recommended personal protective gear.